Our City Council work session. Welcome everyone here and at home. And we are fortunate today to have our Assistant City Manager here, Sari Mandera. Thank you. Okay, so we're first up is the appointments of Police Commission. I have the recommendations I have made are in front of you. That's my role to do in this particular case. And so, Council President.
I move to reappoint Robert Walker to position 4 on the Police Commission for a 4-year term beginning July 1, 2015 and ending June 30, 2019.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yeah, I just want to ask before we get there, for clarification from the city attorney on the question I asked previously, just in general terms.
Yeah, not a legal prohibition, but you have policies and procedures in place.
Repeat the question.
I had asked the city's council whether or not the city council has the authority to appoint someone to a board or a commission when that person had applied to a different board or commission and not the one for which we're currently doing the appointments.
Nothing legally prohibits you from doing that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. You meant, I apologize, just to follow up. You said procedures do.
You have policies that you've followed. You've had practices that you followed where you considered applications for those positions and doing it. And that's the process you have always followed.
Is that in our process agreements somewhere that you are aware?
I don't know.
Or is that a habit of council previously?
It's the past practice. I can't speak to whether it's specifically in a document. I apologize.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to vote on Robert Walker. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and none in opposition. It passes. Next one.
I move to reappoint Jesse Lorkey to position 5 on the Police Commission for a 4-year term beginning July 1, 2015, ending June 30, 2019.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, ready to vote. All those in favor, please indicate. 7 in favor and none in opposition. It passes.
I move to appoint Marshall Wieldy to position 6 on the Police Commission for a 4-year term beginning July 1, 2015 and ending on June 30, 2019.
Second. Moved and seconded. Seeing no discussion, ready to vote. All those in favor, please indicate. 7 in favor and none in opposition.
I move to appoint Terry Robertson to position 7 on the Police Commission for a 4-year term beginning July 1, 2015 and ending on June 30, 2019.
Moved and seconded. Councilor Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to substitute Scott Nowitzki, and I will just discuss that briefly if I get a second.
Is there a second?
I'll second for purposes of discussion.
Budget committee.
Scott Norwicky, who's on Budget Committee.
We appointed him to the
You appointed him to budget.
I know that.
Okay.
But I
Apparently.
wanted a second so I could explain why I substituted it. Thank you. The explanation is I spoke with Mr. Nowitzki, and he feels that and I believe that to be true, that he is fully capable of serving on both committees. The Budget Committee, really our work is, it's about 2 months out of the year. That leaves 10 more months, and he's eager to serve the community, and I think is fully capable of serving on both. And I don't think that during the couple of months where budget and the Police Commission activities overlap would be any type of a problem for him. And he indicated to me that it wouldn't be. So that's why I substituted him.
I can then Claire.
Thank you. I will, as I have met him and know him and talked with him, and under these circumstances, I would tend to agree with Councilor Brown's assessment. So I would be in favor of his substitute motion. I had raised my hand because I wanted to say there was someone else that I would want to appoint to this position, but I suspect that there are not the votes at the table in order for that to be successful based on my previous conversation with the city's attorney and what took place. So I won't make that particular I won't nominate that person, but I will support George's nomination.
Claire and then.
I tend to agree. I don't think there's, in terms of time commitment, a challenge between serving on both the Budget Committee and the Police Commission, since the Budget Committee meets only for a season, essentially. I wonder, Councillor Brown, if you can offer any reason why you think he might be a preferred candidate over Terry, not to pit them against each other, but I have to admit I didn't bring my Boards and Commission packet with me, so I can't look back at either of their applications right now.
Well, why?
I can.
I think he's a very capable person from everything that I've heard, and this is absolutely in no way, don't mean to denigrate Mr. Robertson. Absolutely not. I just believe that Mr. Nowitzki could do an excellent job serving in both capacities.
I've got Chris and then Alan and the mic again.
Yeah, this is also interesting for me. I wasn't engaged in interviewing them for this position. I see you did most of the interviewing. I do know Scott. I didn't know if he was interested in serving on both. If he indicates he is, I think he would be certainly fine for it. But the question I have is, you actually interviewed them, and so I was wondering, is your recommendation for? I'm guessing that Terry Robinson's name is on here because that's the name you are recommending.
Terry Robinson's name is here because when I looked at the scoring from the Police Commission and I looked at how they were, he just fell into that position in order of preference.
Okay. So it was more of a procedural reason why he was there. Okay, that helps a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Alan?
Yeah, we don't have a written rule, but I think it's a bad precedence to say that individuals that aren't appointed because they're a liaison to another group should be appointed by the council to more than one commission. I think we have a lot of commissions, and I think we should spread the wealth, so to speak. And I think it'd be a bad precedence to have allow one person be on multiple commissions. I think we actually change our bylaws about that and say that you can only be on one. And then secondarily, as a side note, I also, in going through this process, I noticed that some of our commissions have term limits and some of them don't, which seems very inconsistent to me. I think we should make a policy about consistency around that as well. So I think there's actually some work to be done around our appointments process, Boards and Commission appointment process. So with the way I'd like to proceed is not to have people apply, or not to have people be on more than one commission, so I won't support the motion. Even though I think Scott's great and I voted for him for the Budget Committee. So, thanks.
Mayor,
Mike?
can I just weigh in 1 second?
Yes.
You have in the manual that we hand out to all the prospective applicants and people that are on commissions, you actually address serving on multiple committees. It doesn't explicitly say you couldn't do that. What it talks about is more around how committee members might serve on various department advisory committees. So if you're on the Human Rights Commission, you might also be on several department advisory committees or other council ad hoc committees. It expressly says you can do that. But there's also precedent for somebody who's on, say, the Human Rights Commission to have a seat at another commission's table. So essentially they're on one committee and representing that committee on another committee, but there's nothing in here that says you couldn't have somebody on two.
I've got Mike and George.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that as part of my point that certainly when I served on Human Rights Commission, we had people there who were liaisons from other commissions, as we do now on Police Commission, where we have the liaison from Human Rights. We have council liaisons. People serve on multiple boards and commissions as a way for cross-communication. And one of the things that we always have each year at the Police Commission level is a discussion about budget, as we heard the other day during our presentation of their work plan. So I actually think it's a valuable thing to have a member of the Budget Committee on the Police Commission so that we get clear and direct information that doesn't always just come from counselors when we're talking about those issues on that committee. Secondarily, I can say that one of the people who served so well and is now going off of the Police Commission is James Manning. James Manning has done an exceptional job, and one of the many experiences and skills and perspectives that James brought to the police commission work was around the issue of militarization of police. It's something that we're all talking about because the public talks about it, and wanting to make sure that we're not having issues of militarization around our police by being sensitive to that and understanding. And we've talked about it, and it's an issue that will be talked about this next year. Scott is a veteran, as was James. And with James going off, Scott coming on helps us in that way and provides a valuable experience.
George.
Thanks, Mayor. All the assistant city manager and Councilor Clark covered some of the points I was going to make, so I don't need to add that to it. Thank you.
So we're ready to vote on George's substitute. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In opposition, 2. It passes. So then we go back to the main motion as substituted.
So I move to appoint Scott Nowicki to position 7 on the Police Commission for a 4-year term beginning July 1, 2015 and ending June 30, 2019.
Second.
Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor, please indicate. 7 in favor and none in opposition. So passes. Congratulations to Terry, Marshall, Jesse, and Robert. Thank you for serving. And next up, we're going to go into... Did I say Scott?
You said Terry.
I'm sorry, Scott, after all that. Sorry. Okay, Scott. Congratulations, Scott. All right, thank you. So next, the Eugene City Council will now meet in executive session to review and evaluate the performance of an employee. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 1926602I. Representative of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. Thank you very much. You want to start out?
Sure. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. My name is Alana Holmes. I'm the Human Resources Director here at the City of Eugene. With me today is Carrie Baraldo, HR Manager, who worked in compiling the information that you and Police Auditor Gissner received. Basically, this agenda item is for the Council to conduct Police Auditor Gissner's annual performance review. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to you so that you can speak to those important parts in the public session.
So I'm going to just start out and tell you that I think you do an excellent job, and I appreciate your communication with me and with all of us and with the public through the newsletter. I really appreciated the information on force. I think it was very informative to us all, and I would encourage us to think about the kind of reports that we would like to have and how to best to get them from you or from the chief or however we want. But it's up to us to be pursuing what the kinds of things we want. In this case, the auditor took the initiative on this, but if there are other kinds of things that we want, I think through the manager, since he oversees the departments, we can make requests for the kinds of reports that we want to have and the kind of information that we want to have. And it's also from a policy level, it's quite possible for you to give direction to the manager about how things that you want him to pursue with our employees. So just thinking about your role in getting the information you want, and they're in a better position since you're the council, if they get direction from you that you want that information. So I just really encourage you to think about that pathway of getting more, for instance, drilling down on the data stuff. If you have a conversation with a manager about that, you want that information, that's the pathway of getting that information. Just want to encourage you all to think about that. And the only other thing I wanted to say was in terms of outreach and making more contact with affinity groups, as Greg says. I think sometimes it helps to go where people are. In some cases, it could be churches, it could be other places like that, and having someone with you that's sort of that person that's already well connected with that group can help you make those kinds of entries into those communities in a different way, I think. So I would just encourage that and be happy to work with you on it. So I'm going to start around the table, and people will respond to the evaluation, and I just say thank you very much. So I'll start with you, Claire.
Thank you. So thank you, Mark, for your great work on behalf of our community. I think you work with a lot of integrity, and as I said in executive session, a lot of your work is kind of behind the scenes, and so because of that, you don't necessarily get the recognition I think you might deserve for improving our delivery of service as in terms of our police services. So I'm just going to reiterate some of the things I put in your evaluation in terms of things that I think you can build upon. I think you've already demonstrated you're interested in building upon. I really appreciate the efforts your office has made in the past year to go out into the community as much as you are able with the significant workload that your office has, and to meet more people and share with them what your office does. Members of our community recognize the value of your office, so much so that there was an editorial in the paper this last week about the fact that we should have a similar department, that the University of Oregon should perhaps consider an oversight office for their police force. And so one of the things I suggested in your performance review for aspiring to in the coming year is, a clear demonstration of a commitment to engage communities of color, and particularly the immigrant community, to make the auditor's office and complaint process more accessible to these constituents. And I'm not so worried about you going out to visit neighborhood associations. I find that the folks there tend to be already engaged and know how to advocate for themselves. I'm more interested in your office reaching out to members of our community who may be reluctant to attend a neighborhood association meeting and might instead be active in their local church, as the mayor mentioned. I also think you might find ways to take more credit for some of the work you're doing to influence policy and implementation at the police force. I recognize and appreciate that you are sensitive to not appearing to tell the chief of police how to do his job or how his officers should do their job, and I think you thread that needle very well. But I think sometimes the public doesn't see the connection between your efforts and an improvement in policy that then shows up in the street as a change in practice. And you've, I think, in the past pointed to the a high-speed chase policy, pursuit policy that you helped reduce the number of high-speed chases through the city, and also canine policy and how we deployed our canines, and you improved our service because of that. So I think while being sensitive to that dynamic with the chief and his department, I think you can take more credit for some of the good work that you've been doing.
Because we didn't want to shortchange this discussion, and I think it'll probably use up most of the time that we have left as we go around the table, I really want to tell folks that are here for the other rental unit management livability that we probably won't get to it today. So if I don't want you hanging around here when we can't, it looks to me like we won't be able to have a thorough discussion. Unless you want 10 minutes. Okay.
Deserve more than 10 minutes.
So, yeah. Councilor Zelenka?
Yeah, Mark, I think you work hard and you do an excellent job as the police auditor. I think you're a model for police auditors around the country, and hats off to you. I think you've really made your mark, not only here, but in the industry and in communities across the country. I think you do an excellent job of being impartial and having your office be impartial, and maybe more importantly, having your office be perceived as being impartial by the public. But I do think, and to play off what Councilor said, is that you need to do a little bit more outreach on that particular point. I think it serves your office and the community well if they know about the work that you do and the impartiality of it, and that it then becomes a place that is valuable for or accessible for community folks to be able to go in and do complaints, and also about the different policies that you work on beyond just the complaint process about making our police department that much better. So I think taking that and going to the next level with it would be a great idea for the next year. I also appreciate your community outreach that you've done this last year and the extent that you've gone to do that. I think you should keep that up. I think you do more of it, especially with civil liberty groups and minority groups and peoples of color. Having said that, those two things I just talked about both are kind of around outreach, and I think you actually probably, given the workload and how much you already do, need more resources to be able to do that, and which would requisite a budget augmentation. So I encourage you to think about that for next year's budget. I think that would be well received at Council and the Budget Committee. And then finally, I really believe that the U of O Police Department needs to establish an Office of the Police Auditor as well, and I know you share that desire. Maybe you can inform us on the status of that and what you're doing to help foster that over there.
I don't think I've been involved in any meetings with them, certainly not with the current president, and
He hasn't even
I don't
started yet.
think the one before. Okay, yeah. So they established a committee that is very internally based, and so there's been no other interest on their part for any more external advice or assistance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when they became a full-fledged police department over this last year, when the legislature gave them that authority, I think it shifted the nature of their organization sufficiently that within the city, I think that they're an organization that probably should hold up to the same standards that you hold our police department to, and create this office of a police auditor. And I encourage you to work with them to be able to that, and if they outreach, I'll be making movements to try to get that moving along with the new president as well. So if and when they outreach to you, I hope you'll help them create one that works as well as ours.
I've tried. They seem interested in keeping everything in-house, at least for now.
Mark, I think you do an exceptional job. As a matter of fact, I think you do so well that one of the best illustrations of it is that I agree absolutely with every detail of what my two colleagues have just said, except the part about the budget issue. That I want to talk about. I think the two things that as we move forward, I mean, what you've established in that place and for this community is an incredible resource, and it bears saying again, as Alan did, that is a national model. And I congratulate you for that. I appreciate the hard work you've done. And moving forward into even greater levels of excellence, I think that we can be a resource to the University of Oregon. It galls me. The nature of the situation concerns me. When it's a completely public institution, there's some public accountability for the use of police action. At the moment where the board moves more private, and they're in control of folks with police authority, I have great concern. I think that's a prescription for an unfortunate situation someday. And so, to the degree that any organization makes use of police powers, there should be public accountability for the supervision of that. And I absolutely agree that they need to have some auditing function there of their internal investigations. And I certainly, it was one of the things I made mental note of the other day when the mayor mentioned that the IGR committee might work towards a better relationship with the university and have greater discussions of some cross-jurisdictional issues. That actually popped into my head at the moment she said it as one where I think we need to talk with the university more robustly about that. The other piece is that with so many other communities in our country experiencing issues around racial tensions and issues around police, you have an opportunity to help us, our police department, do an even better job by being the place where someone knows they're being treated justly when they have a complaint. The place where when someone feels as though if perhaps they weren't treated fairly by the system or by an officer, that they have some power in you and in your office to have that addressed. And I too would encourage you to do more to reach out and to make people aware. The Police Commission has recently done a lot of work to create a bias-free police policy, a bias-free stop policy. And so making sure that our officers are following that, and any investigations of any time that it's not followed accurately should be something you want to make sure and reach out and let people know you're there for. So again, congratulations on the exceptional job you do.
Chris?
Thank you. I rated your job performance excellent, and I think you do an excellent job. The work you do is a model for how this job can be done. And what I don't want to do is get engaged in creating your work plan for the next year. You know, work on this, do this, do that. We can thresh that out. But I do think the general theme I'm hearing is people are primarily satisfied with the work that you're doing. And what they want to see is you to take that light from under the bushel and start shining it so that the rest of the community can appreciate the work that you're doing. And so we've talked about outreach, and I don't know whether there's a need for additional resources or not. So I would encourage you to evaluate that, get in touch with the council chair and vice chair, and then we'll thrash it out here in terms of what needs to. But we can't work if we don't know what your assessment is. I know that outreach does require additional effort because you can't do your job. You can't do two jobs. So let us know if you think that's going to require that in terms of resources. But I do think that having an outreach element will be very important in the coming months for people to really appreciate the fine work that the auditor's office is doing, and also to establish a much more comfortable and trusting level of interaction with the auditor's office. So those would be a couple of good reasons to do it. I had another item I was going to talk about in terms of, it wasn't the resource one, it was something else. I'll remember it later, and it's probably very important, which is why I don't remember it right now. But the point is, you're doing an excellent job, and I think that the outreach is important. Oh, I remember what it was now. Part of what we hired you to do, part of what we pay you for, is your understanding and your expertise. And so I think what we want to be able to do is take advantage of that expertise. And so your perspective, your opinion, your point of view on issues related to policing, I think are of value to us and may be of value to the rest of the city organization and to the community as a whole. So I would encourage you to not be shy about sharing your professional perspective or opinion about issues that relate to policing. The only advice I would say is be sure to process those with your council president and vice president first to make sure that they are something that the rest of the council is comfortable with, because what you don't want to do is express an opinion or have something and not have the council be behind you on it. And I think as long as you do that and the council leadership is supportive of your perspective, then I think that's what we do want. We want to be able to take advantage of the high level of expertise that our auditor has and be able to share that in the community in tandem and in conjunction with the rest of the council. So I would encourage you to figure out a way to incorporate that as well. Thank you.
George?
Thank you. I'm going to be fairly short with mine. I think, Mark, congratulations again on an excellent job performance this past year. In my opinion, you've conducted yourself with the highest degree of professionalism, and I think that you hold your staff to that same standard, and it shows. I think you have an excellent working relationship with the Civilian Review Board, Eugene Police Department, its union, the council, as well as the community in general. I went over your self-evaluation. I can't find any fault in anything that you said about yourself. I agree with it 100%. And as I said in last year's evaluation, I think that the city of Eugene is extremely fortunate to have you as our auditor, and keep up good work, and let's take that little step beyond the excellent rating next year.
George?
Thank you. I think it's really great the way you and your office provide us with the information, with the detailed tracking of complaints and the adjudications, and the weekly reports, and the year-end report is wonderful, very thorough. I'm starting to see some trends now because of that report that are showing up. I know that I believe there's probably tremendous tension for you trying to maintain an attitude of cordiality and professionalism with the police department and the union and the chief, and yet tenacity when you notice something wrong, when things aren't being right, when you think that policy changes are necessary. And I know that it's a pretty difficult balance to maintain, and I think you do a really great job, and I admire you for not, shall we say, backing away from a difficult issue or situation. Thank you.
Eddie?
Thank you. As I said before in my written remark, I think the reports are very good and very, very informative. For what contact I've had with police officers, I think that they think this system is working much better than they thought it would, and that's a good thing. I am concerned about, I've heard that the door is locked to the office. Is that true?
We've had some issues. There's someone watching the door, not more than 5 or 10 feet away, but because there's only 3 of us in the past, we've had, when it wasn't locked per se, that we've had people walk in and take things because there's just 3 of us, but it's very visual for us. No one's ever been turned away. Now, can I guarantee from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday that one of the 3 of us will be there? I can't always guarantee that, but I think that we remain very accessible, and anytime someone's at the door, sometimes even people that still think the shoe repair place next door is still open, we're very accessible that way, but for initial entry, it is for the safety reasons that we have.
So how do they get in? Do they have to knock or ring a doorbell?
Well, we see them, or if they knock, then, because sometimes if Leah's just there by herself, for example, she's in the back office, and so she doesn't have the visual per se, but someone may have a few second delay, but there's someone there to either buzz them in or open them themselves. I have a view from my office of the door, so it hasn't been an issue, and no one's ever really complained about it. And quite frankly, most of our complaints now are either email or phone calls. The walk-ins we have are typically people who are suffering from other social problems as well. So
I heard from someone who wasn't suffering from other social problems, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was concerned about that. And I still would like to know some way, and I know it's not easy, to know how the people who file complaints feel about the way they were dealt with.
and that'll be in our annual report, which Leah just finished yesterday. So, and you'll get that presented on July 8th.
Thank you.
Greg?
Thank you. Again, Mark, I think you've done an excellent job. I really appreciate your professionalism and echoing the same sentiments that other counselors have echoed around the table. I think you do your work with a high degree of professionalism, and you're open and accessible to the communities. I think that from my perspective, I'd like to see a little more accessibility. And as I, discussed with you earlier in meetings and in our executive session, that I'd like to see some more regularity in terms of meeting with specific affinity groups, constituent groups, whether that be civil rights organizations and or other groups in the community that have contact or regular contact with the police. I'd like to see some more accessibility in terms of that, building those relationships up. I'd like to see us, hopefully, as echoing the sentiments of Councilor Zelenka, expanding your capacity. One suggestion I'd like to make that I don't think that we've really thought about in terms of the University of Oregon, and I don't mean to step on their toes in any way, shape, or form. However, but the one thing that we could do that might be a possibility is to offer for your office to contract with them as being a police officer. That would require some additional revenue to come to your office, but I'm sure that the university is fully capable of writing a check to ensure that their department is working in a similar fashion as what we're doing with the Eugene Police Department. And I will note that I have two sons that have engaged that campus. One just graduated from there and have had some issues with the university police and not the Eugene police, although one of my sons has had a stop or two from the Eugene police. But I do think that you've done an excellent job, and again, the issue of having a more welcoming environment in the office is, I think, that's something that you and your staff can look to address over the next few months or so, and hopefully that will be improved over the next year. I echo the same sentiments as Councilor Taylor around that, and in general, good job.
And I just wanted to, I don't like to be surprised in this business. Over the last 5 years, I'm just surprised at how much time now that we are engaged in dealing with cases involving people who suffer mental illness. I'm sorry to other communities that that probably take some time away from that, because I have to be the one that has to step up to make sure that those contacts have gone well. And I would never 5 or 6 years ago have even processed that as something that would absorb so much time. And so I'm hopeful that our state and our county recognize the problems that we have in treating people who are suffering from mental illness, and what ultimately happens is that police officers are the ones that deal with them, and then I have to be the one to look at it. So I'm hopeful, again, you as a policy body as well as help us figure out a way so that more folks can get the treatment that they need. Leah went on a ride-along Sunday. All 6 calls during that time were people who were suffering from mental illness with the officer that she was with. And I don't think anybody have expected that. I don't think police officers who signed up to be police officers expected that. And I think that we as a community need to deal with that issue.
I'd just like to say that, of course, the mental health issue affects every service that we provide that is provided in this city. Its impact is everywhere, so and yours is no exception. I was going to suggest to you to think about putting hours when the door will be open, as opposed to people coming and expecting the door to be open and it's locked, if that's the case. So just something for you to think about, because I do think that that does speak volumes, I guess, to find a locked door. So, but I want people to be safe. So figuring out how to manage the time that when people can actually come in and you have enough people there to make it a safe place, I think that's an important thing to do. I did want to say that when they first put the police department in on campus, that was one of the first conversations I had, and I think I asked the manager to have that conversation too about independent oversight, because my worry was that this is actually happening in our community. It is law enforcement in our community. It indeed affects people who live here, so having them be out of reach of our auditing process is a problem to me as well. I did not get a positive response to that. I got a sort of, we handle it ourselves, thank you very much, kind of response to that. And so, but I'm happy to broach it once more when we have a new president coming in, and we do have the Town and Gown Committee. I think that's a very appropriate place to have a kind of a robust discussion about that. So I appreciate that idea. And I also going to suggest, Mark, if you're up for it, and we can talk about it, but we can sort of focus a few of our next mayor one-on-ones as come and chat with the auditor too. So
That'd be
if you want to
fine.
do that,
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm happy to have that happen. I think that would be a great thing to do and a real opportunity, because when you do that one-on-one, you got people who are coming because they want to talk to you about specific things, but you got a lot of people who are just cruising by and want to say a few words. So it's a real opportunity to get a flavor of different neighborhoods and different parts of town, and I think would be a great thing. So I appreciate that. And so when are we going to talk about the pay part of the deal?
We can talk about it now.
Okay.
So, Alana, I don't know if you wanted to say anything to set us up, or
Just that this past year, we worked with both Councilors Surratt and Evans to do a review as requested of compensation, and provided those results back to Councilors Surratt and Evans, had a conversation with them on those results to show that the position is considered within our markets, and then provided some options on other things that they could present today, knowing the value placed on Police Auditor Gissner's work, and having some options to display that. So I would just turn it back over to you. I think we provided both of you with a few of those options to present today.
yeah, thank you. So, and just to say, Mark will receive a COLA. I believe there's a COLA in the budget for the same as any other exempt employee. But we also have the option to give him some additional compensation in recognition of his performance and the positive performance review that he's received today. And so after looking at those comparables and seeing that he's within market for his position, as well as within our current range of salaries for executives, we discussed with both Mark and Alana the proposal that we provide Mark with an additional 40 hours of vacation time instead of another kind of bonus or bump in salary. So if it's
One time.
you mean, no, not for 1 year. The 40 hours, I believe, would be ongoing.
Well, that would be your decision
Okay.
Yeah, it's part of
to
the
make
contract.
because
It would be for, until his next annual.
yes,
review.
usually it's a for this next year,
I
and we would
understand.
amend the contract. That would happen, and then you could decide whether next year what you would want to do.
So that would be my motion, that move to provide the police auditor with an additional 40 hours vacation time for this next contract year.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Yes, Councilor.
Does the police auditor have the ability to cash that in for unused vacation time?
I think if this is for extraordinary work and he makes that request of you, you could authorize that.
And what's the current hours of vacation time that he has?
Ooh, his balance,
No, on an annual basis. You know, Mark?
your
What's
accrual
your
rate
accrual
at
rate?
6. Ooh, it's probably about 15 hours a month, but
Yeah, that'd be about ballpark.
yeah.
I guess question to Mark would be bonus, for me, bonus versus time. And what would be your preference?
Well, I had suggested, actually, had suggested the vacation hours since I have all my family back east. In terms of your question about, sorry, I've worked in HR 10 or 15 years, is if I leave, then you get to cash out your vacation time, but unlike Ohio, you can do that with sick time and with comp time, but we're not in Ohio anymore.
But our policy doesn't allow you to cash out vacation time, unused vacation time for cash, does it?
There is what's called an extraordinary, it's recognizing extraordinary work, and if you award that similarly to this, there could be a request for that to be paid out.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, I didn't know that, and I wouldn't expect that to happen. I wouldn't ask. I remember a former county administrator and those kinds of issues, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, Betty. Do you have your?
Oh, my question was how much vacation does he get now? That's been answered. I still don't know how much it is per year. I was just looking for my pen to figure that out.
Okay. George?
In the past, we've included the COLA in the motion for
Oh, have we?
compensation, so I'll throw that out as a friendly amendment.
Sure. So I'll amend the motion to include the cost of living adjustment that will be given to other exempt employees.
Second.
Just before we vote, that's all the way we need it, right?
Yes, and as you know, as soon as we hear, we have not heard with respect to whether there will or will not be a COLA. When we get the information on what that is, that certainly is always something that we will apply. It may be retroactive to today, but we will ensure through payroll that that would happen.
Ready to vote? Yeah. All those in favor, please indicate. 8 in favor and none in opposition. It passes. Thank you. And on behalf of all of us, thank you, Mark. We appreciate your work for us. Thank you.
Oh, Mayor,
Yes.
before we finish, since we're not in the neighborhood livability one, I do have a request for staff when they do bring it back that the possible next steps slide that is going to come back to us where we consider a local agent for communications for the rental housing program and the exploration of a chronic nuisance code provision that's similar around the rest of similar to different places in the country. If they could bring back some more detail about those, I think those are both very worthy of moving forward on. And but we'd need more explanation of what those are and what other people have done. And with a little bit more background, I think we can move on it faster if we had it included in the presentation that we're going to see next time around. Thanks.
Right. Thank you all very much.